Contractor on standby. We hope to begin work, depending on the weather, as early as Monday. Throughout the weekend, we will have crews that will be monitoring the site, and if any issues arise, we will address those issues immediately. I'm available to take any questions you may have.
Are you an engineer?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so first question I would have is, probably the most significant change to that bridge in recent years is the fact that you run 3 lanes of traffic at rush hour. Could that have created enough of a stress or vibration or any other kind of issue that could have caused that expansion joint to have that spawn?
So the bridge used to be open to 3 lanes in both directions years ago. It was reduced down to 2 lanes in each direction for reasons that I don't have the answer here today, but we could get that for you. Obviously, the bridge was built in the mid-1950s. The expansion joint, we think it's wear and tear. It could have also been caused by a heavy truckload that went over that area that caused the damage to that expansion joint. Just having the 3 lanes open is not cause for an issue at this point. As I mentioned, the bridge is safe, it's structurally sound, and we don't see any issues with it.
So what's to prevent another expansion joint from breaking the same way this one did? And how do you prevent that from happening again? I mean, I just talked today with the guy that was in the car that got hit by the rocks. He won't drive on that bridge right now. He doesn't think it's safe.
Well, I'll tell you, we have a robust bridge inspection program. We do everything in our means to identify issues, and when we do identify issues, we address those issues as quickly as possible. We will have a team that will be going out in the next couple of weeks, along with our contractor, to inspect all of the expansion joints along that 5.5-mile length of the bridge. And if we identify any additional issues, we will have those repaired at the same time.
If you have an inspection program and it's robust, how did you miss this one?
Actually, this was inspected in August 2018, and there were no issues at that time. As I mentioned, the expansion joint could have been from additional wear and tear or from some heavy truckloads that have caused it.
Doesn't that concern you that it passed in August and it failed in February?
Well, it does always concern us. That's why we are constantly have eyes on the bridge. We have inspectors and engineers on the bridge. Constantly, we're inspecting the upper deck, the lower deck, underneath the deck, the structural elements of the deck. And so we have a very robust inspection program that we inspect and identify any issues and address those issues as quickly as possible.
Can you detail what you're going to be doing on the bridge? When you say you'll be doing work on the bridge, what kind of timing, what kind of disruptions?
So the work is being designed right now. That's why we anticipate starting the work on Monday. Our engineers are working with the contractor to come up with the design. And so probably we'll be doing the work throughout the nighttime hours. We'll try to keep the disruptions to a minimum for the public, but also ensure safety for the public. That's our #1 priority.
So if the last inspection was August, when would the next one have been if this hadn't happened? How much space goes in between inspections?
Typically our bridge program inspection is every 2 years. If it's a fracture critical bridge, we will do that more frequently.
And what is the cost to do this repair that you need to get done so pieces don't fall down again?
Right now, as I mentioned, the design engineers are working with the contractor to come up with the actual strategy, but I do not anticipate it costing more than around $300,000 at this time.
You mentioned that the expansion joint had issues, but what exactly happened to it, and are there sensors for those expansion joints if they were to go bad somehow?
So the issues, it experienced some issues. As I mentioned, the expansion joints, they move with the temperature changes, but they also move with vibration of the bridge. The expansion joint moving had a failure in the expansion joint, which caused the concrete to break off, a piece of concrete, which fell down below onto the lower deck. As far as the other question was, I'm sorry, the other part of your question, sir?
Yeah, do you have sensors throughout the bridge to sense any failures of this sort, or not really?
We do not have sensors on the expansion joints, no.
Is that not, is that something that is not, doesn't exist, or is it simply?
I'm sure sensors do exist, but it's not something that we have on this bridge at the expansion joints.
Was that expansion joint specifically inspected in last August, or was that a whole bridge inspection, or?
That expansion joint was inspected last August, and we inspected the entire deck and all of the expansion joints last
But that would
August.
suggest another issue, and that is if you have a robust inspection, which I'm sure you do, this one got away. Now, that can happen, I guess, but when it did get away, do you need a more robust inspection program so another one doesn't get away? Because I would think that you catch some of this stuff as you see it's starting to fail and fix it. But in this case, you didn't catch it at all, and does that require maybe a better or a more sophisticated kind of inspection henceforth?
So as I mentioned, the bridge is safe. We have that robust inspection program. It didn't get away from us. At the time when we inspected that expansion joint, there was no indication that it would fail.
The person driving that car would certainly want to argue with that, and so would a lot of people who drive that.
And as I mentioned, sir,
But what I'm asking you is are you really doing enough, or do you think there's more things you can do just to make sure?
we are doing everything to the best of our abilities, and we are inspecting that. As I mentioned, we have our inspectors out there that are inspecting the bridge. We inspect all the structural elements, the deck elements, the substructure, the superstructure, and we go through the entire bridge very carefully.
So, question would be, who or what do you blame for the failure?
It's an old bridge. We have an aging infrastructure. There's a reason why SB1 was passed 2 years ago. We have a backlog of maintenance work, and it's just a fact of life that our roadways, our bridges are in need of repair and maintenance, and SB1 is going to allow us to address 500 additional bridges over the next 10 years.
So
What do you think the
you're talking-
lifespan is of that bridge?
Well, it's about 60 plus years now. It had a retrofit done about 15, 20 years ago. The lifespan, I would assume it should still be viable for another 10, 20 years, if not longer.
Can you describe the expansion joint and what exactly does it do?
The expansion joint, essentially, it's if you take, let's assume you have a concrete slab, and on either side you have posts on either side of it. So the expansion joint allows the bridge to move in and out. Steel expands and contracts in weather. So when it warms up, steel tends to expand. When it cools down, steel tends to compress. It allows movement of the bridge, and that's what the expansion does.
So what happened when it was originally fixed yesterday, and is it all clear, open lanes, traffic could go, and chunks started to fall again? So were the steel plates in place during that first fix and then the bridge shut down? Or how do we know that chunks aren't going to fall again with this fix that's there now?
So what was occurring at that time, we were placing the steel plate over the expansion joint. As we were installing the plate, we were bolting it in the corners and bolting it down. Some additional concrete underneath the steel plate fell down onto the bottom deck. As a precaution, because safety is our #1 priority, we, along with our partners in the California Highway Patrol, decided to close the bridge one more time so that we could do another inspection from the underneath and ensure that there was no additional unsound concrete. What we ended up doing was we placed some additional plywood underneath to secure the bottom of the upper deck, so then to reduce any possibility of additional concrete falling.
So you